These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Great determination tonight. It was real focus. Everything was aggressive and sharp and quick. And he gets the bulk of what his 49 come in the flow, which is what's most important for us, most impressive.
He has had over the last few games a few more dunks and things. Are you seeing a little more explosiveness come back to him here in the last few weeks?
Absolutely, yeah, for sure. He looks like he's got his knee issues behind him. He's done a good job of taking care of that and getting worked on and staying fresh. So.
By the way, as Mackey and Judd, daily Minnesota sports, entertainment, therapy, speculation, happy playing day. Dane Moore from the Dane Moore NBA podcast. You can find his written work on Bring Me the News. Did you ever, in your Reddit AMA last night, that was the voice of John Krasinski asking the question, did you ever answer the question, who would win in a fist fight between you and John Krasinski?
We'll have to see, right? If the Wolves lose these play-in games, maybe that'll be... Instead of going to the playoffs, we'll get a bunch of people together to watch John and I box.
I mean, but Dane, you got like a reach on him by like a foot, don't you?
Yeah, John's feisty, man. John's feisty.
He better be real feisty.
You're like Ivan Drago.
Feisty to beat you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yes. If John was here, you would be saying, "Nah, Dane's got nothing. He's big and slow."
I think Johnny would admit that a fist fight with Dane Moore might not be in Johnny's best interest. He's not a dumb guy, so let's just put it that way.
All right, boys.
Of fist fights, we have the Wolves Clippers. I'll take over, Phil.
Wolves and Clippers tonight, and there's a million angles to get into here, but Judd informed me anyways this morning. I guess this came out yesterday. That it's not the Wolves don't just get to like waltz into a game and have it be smooth sailing. Of course, like Paul George has to come back a couple weeks ago, and the Clippers are scoring 125 points a night the last 2 weeks. Oh, and if that's not enough, Ed Malloy is on the whistle tonight inside Target Center, the longtime nemesis of the Minnesota Timberwolves. It can't just, of course, it has to be Ed Malloy on the whistle tonight.
To be clear, I tweeted last night from the Twins game, I have a weird gut feeling Ed Malloy is going to be assigned to this game. And this morning, when it officially came out, it was Ed Malloy. So I just had it's like a Dane premonition that Ed Malloy was going to work this game, and now he is, and I'm quite sure the Wolves are somehow going to get screwed.
Well, I mean, they can be moved by these sort of things. This is a stupid thing for us to be leading with. Let's just say that. That this matters is just a real encapsulation of where this team is. But it does. I mean, if you look at the first two Clippers matchups this year, if you remember them, they're back-to-back games on November 3rd and November 5th. And the reason they lost the first one was because Patrick Beverley got into it with Luke Kennard on the sideline. The ref teed him up on an inbound play. Pat kind of loses his head. Then the inbound play is back again. He passes it to the other team. They get a fast break. He does another turnover right away. This team has such a fragile sort of poise to it because they are so competitive and whatever it is. It's just we've seen that. And then we saw the same thing in the second Clippers matchup where the Wolves were actually up 54-44 in the first half and went on to lose that game after Karl-Anthony Towns picks up 3 fouls in 1 minute. They lose the rest of that game 60-30. So these things matter with this team. Now, there's a lot of other things that matter in this game too. I'm not saying this is the number one most important X factor in the matchup is who's refereeing the game, but they're a team that has shown a history of this season of it mattering how they're dealing with the refs that night. So yeah, I just woke up, saw it this morning, and I just laughed. I was like, of course.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and even take the refs, let's take Ed Malloy and put him aside for a second here. You kind of went through just a quick bullet point of what happened in some of those games, and it's so hard because the 4 games that they've played against each other all happened before the All-Star break. 3 of them happened, like you said, in the first month of the season where the Wolves didn't figure out who they were until after the new year turned over. The Clippers did beat the Wolves pretty handily those first 3 games. In the lone win, which came in like January, Cat, D'Lo, and Paul George were all sidelined. And so it's one of the rare matchups in the Western Conference where you don't really, unless it happened after the All-Star break, and unless it happened with Paul George, Cat, and D'Lo on the court, like we don't even really know what these teams look like at full strength recently, right, Dane?
Yeah, I think that's true, though I find those meetings with the Clippers at the beginning of the year to have been really defining because it was that week they played the Clippers, those 2 games, and they played Orlando right before that, lost all 3 of those games. And it was when we started seeing Cat being guarded by smalls and having the center guard Vanderbilt come over to double Cat because Vanderbilt isn't a floor spacing option for them. And so that's always been in my head the whole year, not even thinking about this play-in matchup. Was we've seen teams do that to the Wolves all season, and it's been the biggest thing that slows down their offense because it forces Cat to make a decision as a passer, right? He has to decide how to decipher the double team there. And oftentimes when you're being guarded by a small guy, they're going to be being chippy with him. So he's not only being doubled, he's kind of getting, knuckles to the ribs from 2 6'6" guys. And it just is kind of, that has been the Wolves' sort of offensive kryptonite this year. And so I think it's kind of fitting that you get the chance in the playing game to go to the playoffs to say, hey, we learned how to figure this out this season. And I think in some ways they have, and in some ways, they still struggle to figure out how to deal with doubles with Cat. So proof's going to be in the pudding tonight.
What you're feeling about this too? To get back to not the officiating, but the mental side of things. What is the importance? And this is going to sound weird for pro sports, but it's not a weird question, of Karl-Anthony Towns processing this game, of Karl keeping his cool if he gets a bad call, or hell, if he starts to get shut down. Like this is a great 1 game sample size, Dane, of okay, Cat, you're incredibly important to this team. How far have you come? What's your expectation there? And do you agree that is going to be one of the big storylines in this game?
Oh yeah, I mean the biggest. The Wolves go through him, and like you're highlighting the ways that things go bad. How does Karl handle the emotions if things start going well? Can he sustain it? We've seen over this past month a bunch of games where he has 13, 15 points in the first quarter, and you're like, okay, like here's another 40, 50 from Cat, and then it's like 4 in the second, 3 in the third, 4 in the fourth, So he is the momentum of this team, positively or negatively. It's like we got the big snowball at the top of the hill, and it's going to roll down one way or the other, and it's going to determine the game. And so often that does just have to do with the emotions of the night. And I think Wolves fans probably go, oh, that's a little bit concerning. We haven't necessarily seen Cat do a good job of controlling his emotions. But I come into this game thinking that this basketball game, of all the players that are playing in it, I think it matters most to Karl individually more than anybody else.
Yeah.
I feel like he's got the most to prove tonight out of anybody on the floor. And I think he wants to prove it too. Like, not a pressure have to prove it, but this game matters to him. He doesn't want to be going home again and content with this kind of feel-good season. Like, he wants to be in the playoffs, and he needs to be in the playoffs, sort of from a legacy standpoint. It's been too long.
If I'm putting myself in the shoes of the Clippers here, I think like trying to get 2 early fouls or 3 early fouls on Towns is the number one, whether it's getting in his head, getting him to commit an offensive foul, getting him to reach or something, as in transition. Like, if I can get him from, let's say, 39 minutes in this game down to 31 or 32, that is, if I'm the Clippers, that is my number one focus early in this game, in addition to just like getting wide open looks from 3. But like, right. Is that how? Let's look at the Clippers side. How would you, if you're the Clippers, how would you attack the Timberwolves? Is that one of the priorities for you? Just get Towns on the bench early?
100%. I mean, it's very doable. That's happened a ton this season. I think Cat finished the year 3rd or 4th in total fouls, like right next to Jade McDaniels. And yeah, the thing is, Phillies, he doesn't actually foul out that often, but he gets a lot early in games. and Finch has this sort of propensity, and I'm fascinated to see if Cat picks up 2 fouls in the first like 4 minutes of the game. Does Finch let him roll? Because that's what Finch has done pretty much like all year. But that is such a razor's edge. Because if he picks up that third in the fourth quarter or in the first quarter, that's now on his mind the whole game. And that's the biggest thing of it is it changes his level of aggression he can play with because Karl finds the need to play really physically, defensively, and offensively, push-offs, arm, everything, So, like on the other side of it, if you're a Wolves fan and it's the end of the first quarter and you see a 0 in the fouls column next to Cat, I feel like the Wolves' odds of winning this game have gone up by like 50% because, yeah, it's just killer, man. This is not a game where they can get away with 20 minutes of Naz Reid. It's just not.
On Pat Bev, he has been really often the heartbeat of this team. Is it a good thing or a bad thing, though, that in a one-game huge play-in game that he's facing the team that he previously played for? Because he does play like I love his style and I love what he brings, but talking about being on the edge, I mean, this is a guy that plays on the edge, and I'm curious if the Clippers are a good opponent or it's almost counterproductive because he's going to be so jacked up.
Yeah, well, again, in the 4 games we've seen them play this season, it's gone both ways. That first game, he totally lost his head getting into it with Luke Kennard, gets the tech, and then the game they won, he was totally the reason that the Wolves won the game. And for these competitive reasons of like, he wants to beat this team. He knows this team. He knows the personnel on the team. He knows Ty Lue, the coach of the team. And yes, he's going to be extremely jacked up. But he was extremely jacked up in the playoffs last year too, where he, decked Chris Paul. So it's like, yeah, it totally goes both ways with him. I think he normally has like a lot less internal mania than it might seem on the outside. Like I think a lot of the Pat Bev crazy stuff that we see that goes viral, that's premeditated. But he's also got like a short fuse that, it can just kind of go off and I don't know. Yeah. That's going to be dangerous if it goes off today. And there's just a lot of Wolves fuses out there that, as a fan, I don't think you want to get lit today.
We'll talk about Anthony Edwards and D'Angelo Russell here in a second, but ultimately the Wolves' biggest goal this week is you don't want to have to start making golf plans for the weekend. Okay, you want to keep playing basketball, but I know a guy, Declan, who is probably going to be making golf plans here in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I don't care, rain or shine. Overcast, sunny. I'll be hitting the links this weekend. You know what? I think everyone should go down to the Meadows at Mystic Lake. Just a little jaunt down 169. It's an award-winning 18-hole public golf course. It offers a unique, challenging, and scenic golf experience. And when the weather is nice and you're out on the patio, you can sit out there, have a nice beverage, watch all the players tee off. And also, if you really want to get in on the action at the Meadows, get the frequent player card. It will drop your golf rate to $75 per round, and you can book your tee times 3 weeks in advance. The Meadows at Mystic Lake. Watch me shoot 100. Maybe you can break 100. It would be a great time for everyone to get down there. The Meadows at Mystic Lake. Check them out.
Also, a shout out real quick to our friends at Dennis Kirk. They've been a partner of ours at Score North from the very start, going back a few years. If you're a motorcycle rider, they've got what you need. Parts, accessories, apparel. If you want to ride off into the 7 seed against Memphis, maybe it's on the back of a Harley, a Metric Cruiser, or a sport bike. Free shipping on orders over $89, over 160,000 parts in stock, and same-day shipping on orders placed before 8 p.m. Ride more, wait less, DennisKirk.com. All right. I already said this earlier in the week, and we'll be sure to tag it for Old Takes Exposed, but Ant Edwards can give you a lot of different things. He can give you a 49 burger, or he can give you a 1 for 13. I think to his credit, even on those nights where he's not shooting well or not getting to the free throw line, like he still gets rebounds. He's still active defensively. He'll still find teammates. But I think he's a big game player, and I think he's going to rise up. What is your sense for how he's going to react to the biggest game of his basketball life to this point?
You guys, I mean, it's totally a thing. Like all year, if it's a Tuesday night and they're playing Indiana, bet the under on Anthony Edwards. Like he's not going to get up for it. But conversely, Friday night, you're in LA, like odds are Ant's going to go for 25 in that. And we have a historical precedent of like 150 career games of him doing this stuff. So I think you're totally right. Now the moment might end up proving to be big for Ant and he gets a little overwhelmed. He's still 20 years old. But historically, he knows when there's more cameras there. He knows when people are watching. He feels when the building's packed. I think he feeds on the Wolves crowd more than anyone else on the team does. So yeah, how can you not like pick a big night for this kid who's rising into becoming an all-star and star in this league? Like, I don't know, man, pressure should be on him. This should be your coming out party, Ant. Like, go get 30. Like, you're a stud. Just, go do it. Don't wait. Don't wait. That's the biggest thing. Like, right away. Like, you are number 2 in the pecking order. Cat, then you go. Like, that's what they need from him.
What's your best guess about what Chris Finch's plan for Paul George will be here, Dane?
Vando. If you look like over the past few months, like Vando guarded LeBron, Vando guarded Luka. And I think with the Wolves, like we've talked about this before, they got this much more aggressive coverage where they're going to bring Cat all the way up to the perimeter and pick and roll, not going to leave him back at the rim. And, when you got, like, Paul George is going to be initiating that, right? So if Paul George is initiating the pick and roll and you got Vando on him plus Cat up there showing, like, I mean, that's 7'6'9" right up there. And that's really important because you don't want Paul George to be able to see over the top of that pick and roll, right? And hit Zubats on the short roll, who can kick to Terrence Mann or Luke Kennard in the corner. Like, that is how you beat the Wolves defense, right? We've seen that 100 times this season. High pick and roll, left to right, hit the short roll guy, spray it to the corner. That's what the Clippers are going to be looking for. And so I think as the Wolves, to counter that, you want to put as much size on the ball as possible. Now, they cross match all the time. The Wolves are actually very sloppy in their matchups. They do that more than they should. So you'll see like some Pat Bev, you'll see some Ant on him. And also, like, I've talked a lot on my show about how, Vando is a bit of a problem offensively in this game. But conversely, you want him on the floor in that situation, because I don't think you want to put Ant on Paul George for 40 minutes in this game, right? So my assumption is Vando will come out, to answer your question, will come out on Paul George, and that'll be a critical matchup because I don't think those two guys like each other either.
Yeah.
So that'll be probably fun too.
And you're talking about this chess match between. I think most people regard Tyronn Lue as one of the top 5 or 6 coaches in the NBA, and just what he's been able to do without some of his best players, and going back to his days with LeBron James too. People who watch
he just
Finch
doesn't
on a
care,
night,
man. He just doesn't care. He'll do whatever that matchup presents. He's not going to stick to like, this is how we play. He's going to do a Timberwolves specific game plan. And that's what they did right against Dallas last year against Luka. It's what they did to, like, quote unquote, play Rudy Gobert off the floor. Like, this is what Ty Lue does. This is what he's best at, is team specific game plans to attack your weaknesses. And we know the Wolves got a few of those.
So how big of a gap? I mean, Chris Finch has done a wonderful job. He should get Coach of the Year consideration. I don't think he wins it ultimately, but like, he's in the conversation. What kind of a gap is there in a game like this between Finch and Lue on the chessboard?
I just think it's fascinating. I'm curious what you guys think about this. Like, Finch has pretty much said, we're just going to play our game. And honest, if I'm being honest, if that was like, I like Finch, but if that was Tom Thibodeau and came out and said that, I would say, what the hell are you doing? Like, you need to have a team specific game plan for a one-off battle. But I'm kind of like, I kind of respect Finch for it, because he's like, this is what got us here. I understand that they're going to maybe try and not guard us responsibly when we have Vando on the floor, but Vando and Pat Bev starting, that's what turned this whole season around. That's what created the identity of the team, right? So I oddly respect the boldness because I don't think a lot of coaches would just, ride the horse that got them there. And I think this matchup actually really dares you to change things up. But I don't think Finch is gonna. I think it's gonna be the same starters. I think the rotation will be fairly similar. I don't think it'll be like, oh, this is what the playoff version of the Timberwolves look like. Whereas on the other side of the ball, Clippers are expecting, again, a team-specific matchup, which is it's just an interesting way to play chess, right? I'm fascinated to see how it works.
Yeah, and maybe the Wolves maybe he thinks, listen, next year we can play higher level chess, but let's not change what everyone feels comfortable with. And there's some young dudes. I mean, not that Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels and these guys couldn't retain some sort of a playoff specific game plan, but maybe that's the thought. Let's not cloud their minds. Let's not make things different or complicated. Let's just keep playing basketball. Well, all right, we'll see what happens.
Do you agree with that?
I think I do.
Philosophically,
in a vacuum, I want something more specific to a team that made a surprise deep run in the playoffs last year, shorthanded, and a team that has buzzsawed their way through the last 2 weeks with Paul George. It makes me a little nervous that they're just kind of we're just gonna play our game. I don't know, man.
I got a theory, Phil. I think he's bluffing.
Wow.
Wow. Finch has been the most transparent coach I've ever covered.
Yep.
What he says he means. What happens. He doesn't bluff. I can't list off things this year. He answers questions honestly, and it's what shows up. I think it'd be tight if he was bluffing. And he's got them thinking, oh, we're just gonna go with the same Vando thing over again, and then all of a sudden you just what if they just started Taurean Prince and Malik Beasley over Jared Vanderbilt and Patrick Beverley?
By God, that's Jake Layman's music. That's Jake Layman's music. By God.
He strikes me as a guy who would definitely make a couple substantial tweaks because he's too much of he's a lifer. These guys, he's a D-League, coached in Germany, and these guys, they do nothing but break down film. I bet you he's got at least one substantial surprise for you.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely see adjustment. Of course, we'll see adjustments, and I think what he's saying is we're gonna adjust once we have to adjust. That's kind of the narrative he's putting out there. If it becomes problematic from a spacing standpoint, we'll go to Taurean Prince. But I think with this Wolves team, the first quarter is super important. It has been all year, right? We can all picture it. They get 5-6 turnovers that are leading into ant runouts and that sort of thing. That's how they win games, right? They get up 10-12 in the first quarter and do it. So I think it's really important who punches first in this game. And it would be a cool, out of nowhere first punch if they were just bang, bang, bang. Here's 4 Malik Beasley threes.
Yeah. Now, of course, an 18-point first quarter lead also doesn't guarantee you an end result. As we've seen, this team can go either way, swings. Just one more thing for you here, Dane Moore. This is just great fodder here leading into the most exciting Timberwolves game, in my opinion, since 2004. But if they lose
game 82?
Yeah, that always felt weird. It was never sustainable.
Yeah,
it was fun. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah.
So the difference between
I think I agree actually.
Yeah. The difference between winning and losing this game is astronomical because if you win, now you're in and you play Memphis and you have a chance to do some damage against Memphis. I think Memphis wins the series, but you can get some legitimate playoff experience and maybe some wins under your belt against Memphis, maybe even upset them. If you lose, it perpetuates a few things. The national pundits, the guys that these players watch on TNT, right? They're all going, same old Timberwolves. Of course, they got beat by the Clippers. And then if you lose the second game, now it's even more same old Timberwolves and you're out. But if you win the second game, now you have to play the Suns and probably get swept in 4 games. The entire experience and the level of respect that you gain by winning this game tonight is so much different than the other path to me. What are your thoughts?
Totally. Well, it's the plan is both complete bogus and fascinating, right? The Wolves are 5 wins better than the Clippers. Why should they have a higher seed than the Wolves? We've never done that before in the NBA. If the Wolves lose, don't the Pelicans have like 10 fewer wins than them? I mean, that's ridiculous. So it's stupid. I don't like that. That's not fair. But it sure makes this way more interesting, right? Like it is a huge game. It made the whole end of the season really important because they were grinding for the 6th seed the whole time. So it's certainly like leveled up the intrigue for this game. But I'm 100% with you, Phil. I think Memphis is actually a very good matchup. Obviously, Phoenix is a terrible matchup. And to me, the most important thing is like meaningful playoff experience in this. Like every single game of meaningful playoff experience you get in this, you can't undersell the value of because they haven't done it. Like Pat Bev has played half the playoff games of this entire roster, and then Nate Knight is like another quarter of them because he was on Atlanta last year. His team has no experience in the playoffs.
Nate Knight should give a pep talk about what it takes to go deep in a playoff series.
I asked him about it after the game. I was like, I think you have the second most playoff experience on the team. Like, he's like, oh yeah, you learn a lot in the playoffs. I'm like, okay, well,
so much.
Yeah, real tough. The grind, man.
So I think that like that Memphis series, just think about the difference, right? You take Memphis to 6, 7, take Memphis to 7. Think about how valuable that is compared to losing to Phoenix in 4 or 5. Those are very different things to me. And as we talk, Finch has been talking about a lot this past week. This is the first step in the foundation that they've built with this team. And I just think that foundation has so much firmer ground, right? If they do something here, right, in this first playoff run with this group. So tonight's huge. It just really is huge. I'm actually with you. I think it's bigger than Game 82. I think we all can agree we like this team more than we liked the team that was playing in that Game 82. And yeah, man, it's gonna be fun.
Oh, there he is.
Awesome
Dane
stuff,
Moore.
Dane.
Awesome, dude. Thanks for coming on, man. It's great stuff.
Of course. You coming to the game, Judd?
I'll be there. Don't know where, but I'll be there somewhere.
Judd's gonna be on the bench.
I'm not sure I'll get my press seat by Dane. So
Judd's gonna be next to Mark Laurie with
that.
his shoes off with 6 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. It's gonna be great.
Hey, Judd, if your pregame routine is have a few beers before the game,
That's right, Judd.
Stick to your pregame routine.
I love that guy. Patrick Beverley is my hero. Like we're the same guy. He's just got athletic talent, and I don't.
You're the same guy.
We're the same guy.
The Patrick Beverley of Minnesota radio. That's
100%.
Exactly right. If your pre-show routine is to drink Surly, you drink Surly, Dane Moore.
Love it. All right, Dane. We'll talk to you soon, man.
Bye.
Later, Dan.
All right. Dane Moore from the Dane Moore NBA podcast. You can find he's a wonderful follow on Twitter too. He just does an awesome job covering the Timberwolves. So, all right. Let's collect ourselves here, take a pause, and we'll come back with some who gets it and who doesn't on Mackey and Judd. Happy playing day.